You will discover how Dan Quinn's hires could lead us to the playoffs or make him a defensive coordinator on another team in 2027. And that is a reality we need to face, but it doesn't stop there. Let's dive deep into how Durante Jones will impact our defense in 2026, revealing the specific changes we can expect in the secondary and coverage schemes. And there's more. You will understand why this is Quinn's biggest gamble as a head coach, and how the limited talent of our defensive roster makes this mission even more challenging. The Washington Commanders made a mistake by trying to hire a big name for the defensive coordinator position, and that deeply concerns me as a fan. This comes right after hiring an offensive coordinator without proven experience. And Dan Quinn's hires for the coaching staff will have one of two outcomes. They will take the team to the playoffs or make him return to a defensive coordinator position on another team in 2027, and that is the harsh reality. Undoubtedly, the Commanders tried to hit a home run with their coordinator hires, and you can't say they didn't try. Quinn considered Mike McDaniel for the offense and Brian Flores for the defense. If the Commanders had managed to hire both, it would have been the biggest successful hiring combination in years for the franchise, and we would be celebrating now. Instead, the Commanders will move forward with hope, not guarantees, which is frightening. This is Dan Quinn's big gamble, and he is putting his job on the line. Let's be fair to Quinn and recognize that he attempted the impossible. In the NFL, you aim for the stars, but often hope to safely land on high buildings, and that's what happened to us. The problem for Quinn is that none of the hired coordinators have a solid foundation of proven experience, at least not in terms of experience as coordinators in the NFL. The offensive coordinator, David Blau, is a young coach, just 30 years old. Meanwhile, the future defensive coordinator, Durante Jones, already has experience as an assistant, but has never held that position before as a defensive coordinator. It's possible that the Commanders could play 5 or 6 games this season and find themselves near the bottom of the defensive rankings, and that would be a disaster. That's the difficulty for a coach who wants to have a chance to move up in the league standings. Often, that means taking on a team with less talent and trying to make things work anyway, and Quinn is in that tricky situation. One factor that could help Jones from the outset is the possibility of the Commanders landing a star like Reuben Bain Jr. in the draft. But, sitting at the 7th spot, there's a chance Bain may have already been selected by another team. Hopefully Jones begs the front office to select a defensive player with that pick. Whether general manager Adam Peters will listen to him is another story, but Quinn has clearly put his coaching job at risk. He needs to win in 2026, or he will be fired. What he built in 2024 made everyone want more and believe in the plan. But in 2025, everything returned to the same old story. The losing Commanders we know. What Durante Jones brings new to the team is a crucial question. At least the Commanders hired a guy who learned from Flores, one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. In the world of the NFL, that's a significant advantage that can't be overlooked. Furthermore, Jones has a lot of experience as an assistant coach. He worked with the Dolphins from 2016 to 2017 and with the Bengals from 2018 to 2019. In 2020, he went to the Vikings, and in 2021, he became the defensive coordinator at LSU, gaining valuable experience. He then returned to the Vikings, where he worked with Flores for the last 3 years, learning the system that transformed that defense. Of course, with any defensive coordinator hire for the Commanders, it's a tough task to face. The Commanders simply do not have many defensive talents on the current roster. Unless they hit big in the draft or are successful in free agency, the tactical scheme will be everything for Jones. One factor helping Jones is that there's not a very high standard for improvement considering the disaster that was 2025. Joe Witt Jr. turned out to be a terrible hire by Quinn, and everyone agrees on that. In Quinn's first year, the Commanders had a mediocre performance, finishing 13th in the NFL in yards, 18th in points, and 20th in turnovers. It was enough to keep the team competitive with a dynamic offense led by Jaden Daniels. But last season, everything collapsed catastrophically. Witt played a key role in the Commanders, finishing at 32nd in yards, 27th in points, and 31st in turnovers. So if Jones can simply bring the team back to the middle of the pack, he might be seen as a good hire, but that's asking for the bare minimum. What Jones has to work with defensively is concerning. In the current scenario, Jones will have an average defensive line. Pro Football Focus ranked the Commanders 24th in the NFL in its final 2025 ranking. At a higher level, the Commanders have Bobby Wagner, who is ranked 3rd, but he is 35 years old. Wagner has not shown signs of slowing down, wrote Mason Cameron. Although his coverage grade has fallen in the last 2 seasons, Wagner remains an elite defender against the run, an excellent tackler, and a great blitzer. Surprisingly, Frankie Louvu ranked 14th, but he will need to make a bigger impact in 2026. As for the secondary, the situation is even worse and concerning. The Commanders are pinning their hopes on cornerback Trey Amos, but he had a poor performance in 10 games. Safety Jeremy Reeves showed flashes of talent at times, but he is 29 years old, and this was his first productive season as a defender. And now, Get ready to understand exactly how Durante Jones will impact our defense. You'll discover the specific changes we can expect and why his approach may be exactly what we need to transform the worst defense in the league. The Washington Commanders parted ways with their two coordinators after the end of the 2025 season, and that was a necessary change. They quickly selected David Blau to replace Cliff Kingsbury, but they adopted a long-term strategy when hiring their next defensive coordinator. Following a contest with several teams for the position previously held by Joe Witt Jr., the Commanders finally managed to attract Durante Jones. With the defense now having a defined leader, we decided to analyze how Jones will specifically impact that side of the field for the Commanders. The emphasis on teaching the secondary will be the first major impact. Jones's experience, both at the college and professional levels, is heavily rooted in secondary defensive players in the passing game. This means he will likely strengthen Washington's coverage schemes, improve communication and discipline in the secondary, and increase interceptions and passes deflected. As a fan, this fills me with hope, as it is exactly what we need. This would address one of the Commanders' biggest weaknesses, as the secondary allowed too many yards and produced too few interceptions throughout the 2025 season. Jones's ability to enhance fundamentals and ball skills will help elevate the level of play for Washington's secondary as a whole. The teaching-first approach is another important differentiator. Jones has coached at both the collegiate and professional levels, so he has a great understanding of how to train developing young players. Reports indicate that he is known as a coach who acts as both teacher and student, seeking a balance between player skills and mutual understanding. Jones's unique ability to connect with his players can accelerate the development of young defenders like Mike Sainristil and Trey Amos, and improve the overall defensive IQ throughout the defensive hierarchy. More discipline and a scheme focused on ball turnover will be crucial. Having a disciplined defensive unit that is focused on regaining possession has been a challenge for the Commanders, but with Jones's arrival, this should change drastically. His teams in Minnesota, especially in 2024, excelled in interceptions and forced fumbles. This new scheme, which Jones learned from Brian Flores, will create those turnover opportunities, providing a better chance for ball possession and ample field position for Jaden Daniels and the offense to work. The alignment with Dan Quinn's vision is perfect. Commanders coach Dan Quinn has always wanted an aggressive and flexible defense. Jones's experience in Flores' scheme in Minnesota and his emphasis on training a secondary that attacks rather than waiting for things to happen perfectly complement Quinn's vision. With Quinn and Jones aligned, a better synergy and clearer defensive identity is created, something we lacked in 2025. Although there are many positives to Jones's arrival to coach the Commanders' defense, there may be a learning curve regarding adjustments during games and consistency in play calling. As a fan, I recognize that this inexperience as a defensive coordinator in the NFL could be an initial issue, but I believe in his potential. However, this shouldn't be a major problem in the long run, considering he has already served as a defensive coordinator at the collegiate level at LSU and found success. What Jones needs now is talent to execute his vision, which is why the draft and free agency will be absolutely crucial for the Commanders' success in 2026. The combination of Blau and Jones as coordinators represents Quinn's bet on young, hungry coaches rather than established veterans. It's a risky philosophy, but it could yield great dividends if the two prove up to the challenge. As a fan, I view this approach with cautious optimism, knowing that 2026 will be a pivotal year. If the Commanders can add key pieces through the draft, like Reuben Bain Jr. or David Bailey in the first round, and bolster the secondary with quality free agents, Jones will have the necessary tools to successfully implement his system. The question is whether Adam Peters will be aggressive enough in the market to give the coordinators the weapons they need. So, fan, after hearing this brutal analysis of how Quinn's hires could lead him to the playoffs or to unemployment, understanding exactly how Durante Jones will impact our defense with his emphasis on the secondary and discipline, and recognizing the limited talent we have on the defensive roster, do you still trust Dan Quinn for 2026?